It was a compelling one. Hi, hello friends and strangers. Welcome back to Pam Shenanigans, and today I will be talking to you about my October and November wrap-up. And it's been a while. I'm deciding to do this as a 2-in-1 wrap-up video because it's a perfect reflection of how I had one of the worst months creatively, and I had little to zero motivation to just create. Moving on, for a quick summary of the books that I read starting October. For that month, I read a total of 8 books. So these 8 books were comprised of 2 mystery thrillers, 2 manga, 1 noir / pulp fiction, 1 fantasy middle grade, and 1 sci-fi speculative fiction. Again, October and November have been a not so good month creatively for me, but a decent month for reading actually. So let's start with October. For that month, I tried to read spooky, mysterious, and suspenseful books because October. But being the moody reader that I am, I read a good mix of genres and formats. I also decided to make a reading vlog out of it, but I failed miserably halfway through it. Starting with The Decagon House Murders by Yukito Asatsuji, I'll insert here a few footages from when I started reading The Decagon House Murders and my thoughts about it. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. I liked it enough to be able to recommend it to other mystery lovers out there. It's not mind-blowing per se, but the ending is kind of open-ended. It's nice in that way. Like, towards the end, I was getting kind of bored. The author explained who the murderer is and going back to how that murderer was able to pull off the murders that happened. So it became kind of draggy for me because I already know what happened with the murders, the earlier murders, but the author had to recall in order to apply how the murderer did that. And overall, I gave this book 4 stars for the creep and mysterious factors. Next book I read was Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, which I gave a rating of 3.5 stars. Again, I'll insert some vlog footages here when I was reading the book and my overall thoughts about it. And it was a great book. It was a great book and I liked it. I gave it like 4 stars. I think one of the things that I also got wrong about this book is that I thought, or I assumed, or I've also read that it was a thriller book, mystery thriller book, and I'm glad that Silvia Moreno-Garcia, the author, clarified that. It's really good. Like, when I was reading this book, it was playing out like I was watching a movie. So it's like a movie in my head. And it's very gritty, it's very dark, it's violent, there's torture, there's murder, so please take a look at the content and trigger warnings first before you pick this book up. Next is The Night Tiger by Yangsze Choo, which I gave 3.5 stars too. This was a Tara Basa Discord group buddy read, and you know that the author is really good at writing when they make such scandalizing and alarming elements work. Be warned that reading the blurb alone wouldn't give you much of what's actually in store in the book for you. It definitely went towards places that I didn't expect, but it's not entirely a bad thing. I just wish I had more of this favorite character of mine. His name is Ren, and I wish he had just more chapters, since he was such a great character in the book. Okay, after The Night Tiger, wait, I actually have the book. I didn't show it. So I just remembered that I actually have a copy of The Night Tiger. And yeah, it's decently annotated. And I took a lot of notes in the book as well. I'm gonna read a few of these. Okay, so I actually wrote something about the way the author accurately writes certain lines that are just too real and impactful. And I also added here that it has a really mysterious plot, and I like Ren's chapters the most, as I've mentioned. I also wrote here that it's mystery with magical realism / it's hard to categorize. Okay, so I also like the mixing of love and history and Chinese superstitions, which is a really nice touch. So that's the end of my notes here. Next book that I read for October is The Girl and the Ghost by Hanna Alkaf, which was the absolute highlight of that month. This was an easy 5 stars for me. I'll insert again a footage of when I started reading about the book. I started it just last night, and I'm already on like 70% right now. I started reading again after work. It's really good. It's really good so far, and it's tugging at my heartstrings. It's like you just can't stop reading it. It's so good. The writing is fantastic. The writing is just wonderful. It's so good so far, and I feel like I have a feeling that I'm gonna cry over this book. I don't know, maybe it's just something will happen, but the book does involve a girl and a ghost. There is like an unlikely friendship between them. Additionally, I absolutely loved how the book dived into the different kinds of friendships and how they can be good yet unhealthy for the people involved, as well as the family relationships and how the past can ultimately and inevitably affect the present. Let me share some of the quotes that I really loved from this book. Our ghosts are part of our ecosystem, woven into the fabric of our culture. We know them well. This next quote perfectly summarizes what the book is about. This story is a ghost story. It is a story of Soraya, who desperately wants a friend, and the ghost she inherits, who learns to become one for her sake. It is a story of two misfits trying to make their way in a world they don't really understand and that doesn't really understand them. But he yearned to be seen and to be commanded, to be sent out into the world to do her bidding. And if he were honest with himself, he yearned to protect Soraya and her fragile human heart from the cruel, harsh fingers of a world seemingly intent on crushing it to powder. Next. Good thing I don't particularly like boys who have stupid opinions about my body. And lastly, it says that the most beautiful blooms come from the darkest soil. I also love the touches of pop culture references like Friends as in the TV show and Star Wars. To conclude, whoever is watching this video, you need to read The Girl and the Ghost by Hanna Alkaf and prepare for the roller coaster ride of emotions that is this book. Okay, next book I read was For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I absolutely enjoyed Samantha Downing's earlier work, which is My Lovely Wife. So I think that also added to my expectations of the book. It didn't leave me mind-fucked as My Lovely Wife did, but it was a compelling one. Moving on. It didn't leave me as mindfucked as My Lovely Life did, but it was a compelling one still. Off the bat, you'd already know who the culprit is, as in like halfway through the book you already know who it is. But Samantha Downing managed to still have me reading and finishing the book without feeling like I have to DNF it or anything, since there are other elements as well, POVs and events that play out on top of the main plot. I was compelled to finish it. Trigger warning though for poisoning, bribery, blackmailing, sexual assault, and murder. After that, I read SpyxFamily by Tatsuya Endo, and I tracked only 2 volumes on Goodreads, but I've read up to more than 100 chapters of the manga. And why I do this, I will probably dive into on a different video. Anyway, I absolutely inhaled and loved SpyxFamily. Despite the violent and gory visuals of the story, it is ultimately such a hilarious, laughing out loud and wheezing at 12 a.m. kind of funny. I actually consider this book a pick-me-up book, considering the morbid undertones, but anyway, I highly recommend this series. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars. And last for the month of October is The End of Men by Christina Sweeney-Baird. This book was part of my most anticipated 2021 releases, and it kinda disappointed me. So what is this book about? Set in a world where a virus stalks our male population, The End of Men is an electrifying and unforgettable debut from a remarkable new talent that asks, what would our world truly be like without men? It definitely felt eerie to read because of the similarity of our situation, as in our present situation, with the plot of the book. Experts trying to ring the bell early to warn people of possibly impending doom if the virus goes out of hand. There are also selfish and messed up people milking the pandemic for their own gain, and the loss that people experienced when their loved ones get infected by the virus, and that knowing that nothing can stop their deaths. Pretty familiar. The book was okay, although having confusing POVs, even if I really zero in or focus and listen to the audiobook, it was kind of confusing. I give this book 3.5 stars. Moving on to the month of November, I read a total of 5 books. These are 2 mystery thriller books, 1 sci-fi fantasy, 1 young adult contemporary, and 1 young adult romance. So I kicked off my November reading month with You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thao, which was also part of my most anticipated releases of 2021. It is a story of grief and acceptance centered around this couple, Sam and Julie, whereas Sam died and Julie was left to pick up the pieces. But one day, Sam answered her phone call, and the rest was, well, the rest you can read if you decide to pick up the book. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It was just okay for me. I think you need to be in a very specific mood and mentality to enjoy You've Reached Sam, and I may need to reread this once I'm in the right mood to read You've Reached Sam. You can watch my full review and reading vlog of You've Reached Sam just below, down there in the description box. Next book I read was the freaking highlight of my November, Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao. Instant, easy 5 freaking stars for me. Highest recommendation. Please pick this book up. If you need more convincing, you can watch my review here. Next book I read for the month of November is Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi. The blurb: Yolk, a new title from Mary H.K. Choi about 2 Asian sisters who swap identities in order for one to use the other's health insurance for a life-saving operation, which doesn't really summarize the book in an effective way. It only skims the surface of what actually happens in the book, but yes, that is part of the plot. I gave this book 3 stars. While it had such I have the book here. I gave this book 3 stars while it had such a lovely cover and book design. So just look at that. Although I annotated here, but you can see the amazing design. Despite that, I didn't care enough about the characters. In fact, they were infuriating and annoying to read. Granted that they both were going through some tough shit, I totally understand that, but it's just really hard to empathize and hard to connect with the characters. After Yolk, I read Impostor Syndrome by Kathy Wang, and I also gave this book 3 stars. So here's a short blurb about the book. Part page turning, cat and mouse chase, part sharp and hilarious satire, Impostor Syndrome is a shrewdly observed examination of women in tech, Silicon Valley hubris, and the rarely fulfilled but ever attractive promise of the American dream. This book was categorized as a thriller, but not much thrilling things happened. It's actually more of a mystery drama, but thrill, there's none. It felt kind of a pain to read, actually. If you want to avoid a reading slump, kind of avoid this book as well, or just move it down your TBR. I buddy read this with Kriti from Armed with a Book, which I will have her links down below. Please support Kriti. She's such a wonderful human being and creator. Going back, I immediately felt really bad that I chose this book for us to read because we both didn't enjoy it as much, to not warrant a blog post from Grady, because based on our previous buddy reading experience, we were able to also create a blog entry for Grady's blog for the book that we read before, but this book just didn't warrant that kind of effort from both of us, so I felt bad. And I tried to like this book, really. Finding things to like about it was hard. I think the only thing I liked about it is the different misogynistic ways that the 2 main characters experience, both in the workplace and in their personal lives. Despite that, it was hard to relate to the main characters. Anyway, the last book I read for November is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This book follows a group of final girls, girls who survived attacks and massacres years or decades ago, and now they have a support group for that. While it is a really fast-paced book and had moments that will make you sit up and listen extra closely, it was a big no for me. I wanted so much for Grady Hendrix and me to work out, but this is the second book that I read of his and I still didn't like it. I honestly feel like I wasted my time reading this, so I'm giving this 2 stars. And that's it for my October and November wrap up. Let me know if you've read this books and if you had other thoughts or similar thoughts about it as I do. I would love to discuss them with you. I hope you had a good reading month for November, and it's already December and the dog is still barking. I wish that you guys would be able to hit your challenges, hit your reading goals, etc. Thank you for watching. Till next time, friends and strangers. Bye bye.